Ladies and gentlemen, Levi once again, and in this video, you need to really watch this before you get started in land flipping, but essentially we're just going to go over how to not waste money when you get started. And the reason this is such an important topic is because there's a lot of ways that you can easily waste money in this business. For example, when you're sending mass mailers, it gets super expensive. So you want to really maximize how you send mail. It's just one example. We're going to get into all of them. But the reason that conserving capital is so important, because the more money you have, the more deals you can do. But that's just a very quick overview. Let's get into the video. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Levi. I'm co-owner of MMC Land, where we buy and just flip vacant land parcels. We also help new land flippers get their first deal, and we help more experienced land flippers get more deals with stronger strategies. So without further ado, top ways to waste your money in land flipping. So paying expensive closing costs. This is important because you want to know how you are going to close on every property you are going to buy, and you want to shop around. And what I mean by this is generally you have three different ways to close on a property. You have a title company, you have a real estate attorney, and you can do it yourself. And if it's your first time going about in this business, I would stick with the title company every time. And the reason I say this is because you're not going to really be familiar with how the process works at all. A title company is going to hold your hand and sort of guide you through it. On top of that, you don't need to do your own due diligence to check if there's a clean title or if there are any potential liens on the property. So it's really the easiest way to go about doing it. It's just a bit more expensive, and on every deal it doesn't make sense. And on top of that, when you get a little bit more experienced, you can go about potentially partnering with a real estate attorney. It's much cheaper, and a lot of the time you can get more deals, as sometimes even a couple $100 can make or break the deal. And with that being said, lastly, you can do this yourself closing, but I would say just wait till you're more experienced. I'm going to have definitely a future video on the best way to go about doing this yourself. And it's a lot easier when you live in the state you do business in. If you don't live in that state, it can complicate things for sure. I just wouldn't recommend it when you're just starting out. You can shop around. So if you call a title company and they give you a price, you can say, hey, look, I'm a land investor. I'm going to be calling a lot of title companies. Also let them know that you're going to be doing a lot of business in the area and that you want their best price, because all the deals that you get, you're going to send to them. So if they can do a little bit better on their pricing, you can move forward. So yeah, just shop around. You can tell, title companies that, real estate attorneys that, and a lot of the time they understand, the more volume you do with them, or if you're a partnership, the better price they can give you. The second reason is expensive softwares that are not needed. So for example, we use Regrid. Regrid is our data processor. So we get all of our information there, names, addresses. We target our parcels on there. I think it's like $15 a month. We just pay the yearly plan, opposed to the land portal, which has plans of $50 a month, $100 per month, and $500 per month. Regrid is amazing for just starting out. You don't need to have the best software when you're just starting out. We also use True People Search to find phone numbers. It's completely free. You don't need to skip trace leads. It might save you some time, but it can be expensive. You're skip tracing 1,000 leads, right? And if you have Signwell, this is super important because you need to e-sign contracts. I believe this is like $10-15 a month as well. This is so important because when you're just sending everything through mail, it just takes so much longer. And in this business, speed is important. So Squarespace is for your website. I highly recommend having a website. And we use Simple Invoice for billing. On our website, we have a $50 fee to weed out serious buyers from unserious buyers. So when they pay that $50 deposit fee, we can generally tell that they're actually serious and not going to waste our time. So that's, for the most part, all we use this for. Really, this is one of the biggest ones, but not qualifying your leads. So, if a property is landlocked, if someone is living there, if the shape is like really bad, if the slope is terrible. There's a million reasons why a parcel, might be bad and you might not want to buy it. But not doing your due diligence before, you send out 100 mail and all of those properties are like cooked. 100 mail, that's like $80 right there that you just threw down the drain. And I have a story about this. So our very first potential deal that me and Francis ever had, ended up being in a really bad flood zone, right? And we didn't do our due diligence and check that. So it's our fault we didn't qualify our leads. So we spent maybe $200 on a mailing campaign in that area. We had a deal for $840. We were going to sell it for maybe $8,000. But it turns out, we got into the area, and in our rental car, I'll pop up a video on the screen, but the entire area was like a swamp, and there was water, and people were in boats, and it was a nightmare. We couldn't drive to the property. We were still like 10 minutes away from the property, and the entire area was just in a floodway, completely underwater. So it was a nightmare. We didn't end up buying that one. We couldn't even see the property. We kind of just went to the area for no reason. We paid for a flight, hotel, rental car, everything. So we just wasted a ton of money, and the property was pretty much unusable. And this is just kind of like our $50 fee on our website. That's kind of what we use simple invoices for. So it's kind of important. And I want to give you guys like a low budget like starter pack. So essentially like Regrid or Landglide, it's like $15 a month. Google Sheets, Google Docs, it's free. It's super important to stay organized. These will help you stay organized. Canva does all of your video editing or picture editing, right? So we just edited all of this on Canva. We also have, a phone number and True People Search. If you don't have a phone number, you're probably cooked. You probably can't do the business, honestly. But, I'm assuming all of you do. And True People Search is obviously free. And you can do your first mailing campaign with, $50 to $300 just for sending mail. And Facebook is free. You do not have to pay for advertising. We rarely ever pay for advertising on Facebook. It generally has to be a very expensive property. If it is not an expensive property, we usually don't waste the money paying for ads, even though it is a tax write-off, just because it's not really necessary. Now, I have when to start upgrading. So when your reoccurring passive monthly income pays for it, that is a good time to upgrade. When you have 5 to 10 deals plus, that is generally a good time to upgrade, because at that point you have a working system that you are confident you can repeat. Generally, if you have 5 to 10 deals where you're getting 3 to 5, X margin, right, on average, I would say that at that point it's not really luck anymore. You really have a sort of skill, and generally when you do it that many times, you have a working system that you are confident you can repeat. Right? Or when you just want more time for yourself. So if you are just starting off in the business and you're working a ton, you're actually making a decent amount of money and you can afford to have better softwares, I would say at that point, fine. But if you are in college, you don't have that much money to get started, I would say you don't need to have the best softwares. Francis and I, for the longest time, were not spending that much money each month just on all of our softwares. So yeah, you really just have to see if the trade-off between wanting more time or having more money is worth it to you. And this is very important with like skip tracing phone numbers, for example. Like you can pull all of your phone numbers for free on True People Search, or you can skip trace them and they do it for you. But generally, a lot of the skip tracing websites just use True People Search anyway. Same thing with mail. You can write mail yourself, or you can pay a company to like do it for you. So yeah, a lot of this stuff can be, done by yourself, or you can pay a company to do it. So yeah, it's just a trade-off that you guys have to make. But again, I just wouldn't recommend it until you have like a working system and that you can repeat the process. And, if your monthly income from just, seller financing contracts can pay for all of your software and everything, that's a plus too. Then I would say it's kind of a no-brainer. So guys, our 3-step outreach method, and I have a full video kind of going a little bit more in depth on the channel. It's one of my earlier videos, but essentially Francis and I wasted so much money just strictly doing mail when we started, right? And so we had realized pretty quickly that cold calling was actually very useful, and it's actually free. So we ended up devising this 3-step outreach method that is comprised of, step 1, cold calling, but also texting and mail. That's going to pop up in a second. But cold calling, you can essentially get numbers and call for free. You do not need to skip trace to get phone numbers, like I mentioned, if you just take, an hour to go get the phone numbers yourself. Right, so step 2, text. It is also free and quick to do. You do not need a software to text for you. whoever I can't reach over the phone, essentially, I'm just going to send a copy and paste text message to them. Texting is not very useful, honestly, but most of the time you can reach out to someone via texting, and they'll just tell you that they're not interested. So you can kind of write them off from your mail campaign list, because step 3 is mail. It's the most expensive, so you want to save it for last. So next on the list, we have picking your style, cash or financing. And so this is really when you go to sell your properties. And the reason that I have this on a how to not waste money when starting a land flipping video, it all kind of makes sense in a second, because you would think like this is where you make money. But you really need to determine whether you need quick cash to scale first, because this determines if you can offer seller financing in the first place. So if you cannot afford the opportunity cost to offer financing, and you do offer financing, you are going to be hurting your business from the start. What does this mean? So essentially, what I'm trying to convey to you guys here is that if you guys are financing, so guys, let's say you have $3,000 in your bank account and you spend $3,000 on your first property. So that's all of your money gone right away. Now, if you're doing things right, you should be able to get a 3 to 5x margin on this property for cash, right? And let's say you guys end up selling it for financing, but you only get $1,000 of a down payment. Now you're kind of hurting yourself, because you can't do as much outreach and you don't have as much buying power to keep doing outreach and buying properties if you do not have access to deal funding. You are hurting your business from the start, because your opportunity cost does not make sense for you to offer financing. Now, if you have maybe family or friends that trust you and the business model that can lend you money to help you get started, then this doesn't really apply to you. But if you don't have any resources, right, you probably want to offer cash at first. And the reason that, this isn't a how to not waste money video is because you're kind of leaving money on the table if you cannot afford to be doing constant outreach. So that's just a point that I really want to emphasize. You need to analyze your own situation and determine, your best course of action. And the importance of saving money. So we kind of talked about this already, but more money equals more buying power. Here's me in the background at one of my properties. But more money equals more buying power. And that's really given. If you run out of money, you can't buy as many properties. More money equals more outreach capabilities. Same thing. If you don't have money, you can't do outreach, and it slows your business down. If you have enough money, you do not need to suffer going through deal funding and cutting your own profits down. So, this is just final thoughts, but our biggest takeaway from this video should be ease into the process and don't go all in when you do not know what you're doing. What I mean by this is don't get shiny object syndrome. You don't need the best softwares. You don't need to spend a whole bunch of money when you're not even sure of your own proof of concept yet that you can do this business. And it's not that hard. I honestly think everyone can. But with that being said, you need to put in some effort and you need to go through the trenches before you just waste a whole bunch of money, quite frankly, before you even have a deal or before you have passive income. So, and I want to go over our biggest issue that held us back. So I think personally, the biggest reason or the biggest area in which we wasted so much money is probably just doing mail without qualifying our leads. We've probably spent, thousands of dollars just on bad leads. This is not even including, before we kind of found our 3-step outreach method that consists of calling and texting, right? But just doing mail on properties that have bad shapes, bad slopes, bad road access, or are landlocked, that's probably costed us so much money, especially in the earlier stages of our business, which again is the most important, because you don't have the money to be wasting at that stage, because every couple $100 is important at that point. So that's pretty much it, guys. Just really take into account what I'm saying here to save as much money as possible before you get started in land flipping. And I mean, if you guys like the video, just like the video. If you guys have any things that you want to learn or any feedback or anything, leave a comment and subscribe. Again, I've been Levi. Hope you guys have a nice rest of your day, and peace out.